Hey man, let's get something straight right off the bat. When you hear the word pretending, your instinct might be to think of lies, games, or manipulation. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not telling you to lie to women. I'm not telling you to become someone you're not. I'm telling you to pretend in the same way an actor rehearses for the role he's about to become. Pretending isn't about deception, it's about becoming. And in the realm of attraction, pretending can be the bridge between the man you currently are and the man women can't stop thinking about. Why? Because when you pretend you're the prize, when you walk into a room as if every woman already wants you, something strange happens. They start to believe it too. Women are highly intuitive, emotional beings, but they're also incredibly suggestible when it comes to male energy. They respond to what they feel more than what they hear. A man who walks with presence, who acts like he's got options, even if he's never kissed a woman in his life, creates a gravitational pull. You don't need to be famous, you don't need to be rich, but if you pretend like you're unfazed, unbothered, and unneedy, they begin to feel that you're valuable. And when a woman senses value, she becomes curious. Curious turns to attraction. Attraction turns to obsession. And it all starts with a simple decision to stop acting like a man who needs her and start pretending like you don't. Let's break down the genius of pretending. When you act like you don't need her attention, you train your body, your face, your tone, and your energy to move differently. You stop overthinking, you stop chasing, you stop waiting for replies like your life depends on it. Instead, you act as if you're already wanted, as if you're already busy, as if her validation is a bonus, not a requirement. This as if mindset rewires your entire presence. And guess what? She doesn't know if it's real. She just knows it feels real. She can't tell if you're actually in demand or just giving off that vibe. And that ambiguity, that mystery, that's where the seduction lives. Most guys fail because they show their hand too early. They lead with admiration, not curiosity. They show all their cards, thinking sincerity will win her over. But women don't fall for truth. They fall for feeling. And when you pretend like you've got 100 other things going on, like you barely noticed her, like she's just another person in your orbit, she starts craving your attention. She starts wondering what's behind that calm, detached exterior. You become the puzzle she wants to solve. And when she's thinking about you more than you're thinking about her, that's when you've already won. Here's the real psychological reason why pretending works. Women fall in love with status, not money, not power, perceived status. A man who acts like he's in high demand, even if he's still building his life, is more attractive than a man who's technically successful, but emotionally needy. When you pretend you've got better things to do, she feels it. When you pretend you're not waiting on her text, she gets anxious. When you pretend like her beauty doesn't affect you, it confuses her. And confusion in a woman's mind creates emotional tension. That tension creates interest, and interest opens the door to attraction. Let's be brutally honest. The guy who pretends he's not interested while secretly holding the line, while keeping his masculinity intact, while staying composed in silence, he wins. Why? Because he's not reacting, he's not emotional, he's strategic. And don't confuse that with being fake. This isn't about lying. This is about self-control, emotional discipline, the power of restraint. Because women chase what they can't fully read. And when you master the art of pretending, not in what you say, but in how you move, you become unreadable. And unreadable is irresistible. Think about the guys who get friend-zoned. What's their biggest sin? They show too much, too available, too kind, too predictable. They reveal their feelings before the woman has earned that level of access. And the truth is, women don't respect what they didn't have to work for. When you pretend like she hasn't earned your time yet, when you act like you're evaluating her just as much as she's evaluating you, she steps into her feminine, she begins to seek. And when she starts seeking, the entire dynamic flips. You're no longer auditioning, you're deciding. That's masculine energy. That's how the game is really played. But here's the key. You can't break the illusion. You can't pretend you don't care and then double text at 2 a.m. You can't act like you're busy and then post thirsty stories just to get her attention. This kind of pretending only works when it's disciplined, when it's consistent, when it becomes who you actually are. You start with pretending, but if you do it long enough, it becomes reality. You begin to feel like the guy who doesn't chase, like the guy who doesn't need to prove anything. And eventually you stop pretending. because you are him now. That's the transformation. That's the magic. You ever wonder why the guy who barely looks at her ends up being the one she wants? It's not because he's better looking, it's because he doesn't put her on a pedestal. He pretends, maybe even unconsciously, that she's just another girl. And that subtle lack of effort drives her wild. She starts thinking, why doesn't he care? And that internal question spirals into obsession. That's how pretending works. It doesn't scream, I want you. It whispers, you'll have to earn me. And that whisper echoes louder in her mind than any compliment ever could. So if you're tired of being the guy who always cares more, who always texts first, who always wonders why she lost interest, stop, pause, breathe, and start pretending. Pretend like you're already the man she wants. Pretend like you have options. Pretend like her beauty is irrelevant to your purpose. And watch what happens. Watch how her tone changes. Watch how she leans in. Watch how she starts to crave your attention. Not because you chased her, but because you didn't. Because you knew the secret most men never learn. Sometimes the most honest thing you can do is pretend until your reality catches up. Pretending, when done right, isn't weakness, it's strategy. It's the art of walking into any situation and choosing how you show up, instead of reacting emotionally to every move she makes. See, when most guys see a beautiful woman, they shift. Their posture changes, their voice softens, their energy becomes submissive. But the man who pretends like he's already been around this energy, already experienced her type, already conquered these situations, he stays grounded, and that groundedness makes her feel like she's the one trying to win you, not the other way around. There's a reason actors rehearse the same lines over and over, because at some point the pretending becomes second nature. That's what you're doing when you train yourself to be detached, composed, and unfazed. You're rehearsing your masculine frame, and every time you resist the urge to chase, to over-text, to emotionally react, you strengthen that frame. It becomes less of an act and more of your identity. And when you walk through life with that energy, solid, silent, sure of yourself, women notice. Not because you're loud, but because you're different, unavailable, mysterious, and in their world, that's magnetic. The guy who pretends like he has options, even when he doesn't, is playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. Because options aren't just about numbers, options are about mindset. When you move like a man who could walk away at any time, who isn't afraid to lose her, who values his own peace more than her presence, you make her question herself. You shift the power dynamic. She goes from being the chooser to the one hoping to be chosen. And that's the exact moment when attraction flips. When she starts checking her phone. When she starts wondering what you're thinking. When she starts playing your game. Pretending isn't about being fake. It's about being unshakable. A woman might test you. She might ignore a message. She might talk about other guys just to see if you flinch. And when you pretend like it doesn't bother you, when you pretend like you didn't even notice, when you respond with calm indifference, that's when she starts seeing you differently. Not as a boy trying to win her approval, but as a man who doesn't flinch for anyone. And that energy, that's the energy that drives her insane, because she's not used to it. Most guys break, but you pretend like you don't even play that game. Let's talk about high-value men for a second. High-value men don't over-explain. They don't overshare. They don't emotionally vomit all over a woman, hoping she'll understand their worth. They withhold, not out of fear, but out of discipline. They let women earn access to their inner world. And if you're not there yet, you can still start by pretending you are. Pretend like your time is limited. Pretend like your energy is sacred. Pretend like she needs to earn your presence. And with time, those pretensions harden into principles. You stop acting like a man of value, and you become one. When a woman feels your attention pull away subtly, not dramatically, her mind starts racing. She thinks, what changed? She replays your last few interactions. She starts wondering if she did something wrong. And in that gap, that space you created, by pretending to be busy, by pretending to be unfazed, she begins to chase. That's the beauty of feminine psychology. It responds to space, not to pressure, not to begging, but to the vacuum your absence creates. And you created that vacuum not by ghosting her, not by punishing her, but by pretending that your world never revolved around her to begin with. Understand this. A woman falls in love with your energy, not your words. And when your energy screams, I'm not desperate. She feels it in her gut. But if your energy screams, please pick me, she loses interest instantly. That's why pretending is powerful. It protects your energy while you build the real thing. It creates emotional distance while you upgrade yourself. And eventually, you won't need to pretend anymore because you'll actually be too busy, too fulfilled, too self-assured to care whether she comes or goes. That's the true reward of pretending. It buys you time to become the man you were meant to be. But let me be clear, this isn't about becoming a cold, manipulative bastard. This isn't about turning into someone who plays with women's hearts. It's about protecting your heart until you're strong enough to lead with it. It's about setting boundaries with your attention. It's about refusing to bleed for someone who hasn't even offered you a bandage. And until you reach that level of strength, you pretend. You fake it till you make it. You rehearse detachment. You wear the armor of mystery. Because the world doesn't reward men who are raw and emotional at the wrong time. It rewards men who move with poise under pressure. There's something incredibly attractive about a man who doesn't flinch when things don't go his way. When she cancels, you pretend like you had better plans anyway. When she pulls away, you pretend like you barely noticed. When she ghosts you, you pretend like your inbox is overflowing. And yes, it's pretend at first, but it keeps your dignity intact. It protects your pride. And over time, that pretending starts to breed confidence. You begin to realize that most of the pain you felt came from chasing validation instead of standing firm, and that realization alone makes you unbreakable. So next time you're tempted to double text, pretend like you're already over it. Next time you feel like pouring your heart out, pretend like your heart is focused on your purpose. Next time you think she's the one, pretend like you haven't even decided if you're interested yet. Because this isn't about being fake. It's about being free. Free from the need to be chosen. Free from the fear of rejection. Free from the exhausting game of chasing women who barely see you. And when you live with that kind of freedom, do you own and feel it? And they don't just want it, they crave it. When you pretend like she doesn't occupy space in your mind, she begins to wonder what does. That curiosity is powerful because it forces her to start chasing clarity. And this is where most men break. They spill everything the moment a woman gets curious. But not you. You sit in your silence. You smile when she asks questions. You keep it vague. You let her fill in the blanks with her imagination. And trust me, her imagination will make you 10 times more attractive than anything you could say. Because mystery beats explanation every time. And the more she wonders, the more she invests. The best part about pretending is that it becomes a discipline. At first, it's hard. You want to explain yourself. You want to react. You want to prove your worth. But over time, pretending teaches you emotional restraint. It teaches you to stay calm when others panic. It teaches you to pause when you want to act. And that's the mark of a powerful man. Not the one who reacts quickly, but the one who chooses his moves with precision. Pretending is the gym where you train that muscle. It's how you build the frame that can withstand storms, whether emotional or romantic. You might be wondering, won't pretending feel fake? Won't it feel like I'm lying to myself? Yes. At first it will, but only because you've spent your whole life being conditioned to react. Conditioned to chase. Conditioned to believe that honesty means vulnerability at all times. But that's not masculine honesty. Masculine honesty is grounded. It's slow. It's earned. And until a woman earns your truth, she gets your discipline. That's the trade-off. Pretending doesn't mean lying. It means protecting your truth until she proves she can handle it. Watch what happens when you pretend like her beauty doesn't impress you. Watch how she tries harder. Watch how she becomes more feminine, more playful, more invested. You're not being mean. You're not playing cruel games. You're simply removing the automatic reward she gets from every other man. You're resetting the dynamic, and in that space, she gets a taste of something she rarely experiences, the thrill of earning a man's attention. And once she gets a glimpse of that, she won't want to go back to being chased by weak men who hand their hearts over for free. When you start pretending, you create a version of yourself that's slightly ahead of who you are today, a more focused you, a less reactive you, a more emotionally disciplined you. And that future version becomes your new standard. Every time you pretend like you're unbothered while still showing up strong and masculine, you take another step toward becoming that man. It's not about tricking women, it's about transforming yourself, and women respond to that growth. They feel it. They can't explain why, but something about your presence becomes magnetic. It's because you're pretending just enough to become the man she dreams about. Let me give you a harsh truth. Women don't dream about the guy who pours out his feelings too early. They dream about the man they don't quite understand, the man who feels slightly out of reach, the man who seems like he's already won at life, and her affection would just be a bonus. You can become that man, but until then, pretend. Pretend like you've got options. Pretend like your mission is bigger than her. Pretend like your phone is blowing up, even if it's just silent notifications from a productivity app. It's not about deception, it's about perception. And in the world of attraction, perception is everything. Let's talk about texting. Every guy feels that impulse to double text when she doesn't reply, to explain himself, to say just checking in. But a man who pretends like he doesn't notice, that man becomes a riddle, and women chase riddles far harder than they chase answers. So next time she goes cold, you go colder. You don't rage, you don't post passive-aggressive stories, you pretend like your world is too full to notice her absence, and soon, that silence becomes so loud in her world that she starts hearing it, she starts feeling it, and she comes back, not because you asked, but because you withdrew. Pretending isn't weak. Weak is texting her after she disrespected your time. Weak is showing up when she gave you breadcrumbs. Weak is begging to be seen. But pretending to be unaffected, pretending that her games don't move you, that's power, that's control. That's the first step in flipping the script. And the deeper you go into that mindset, the less you need the outcome. You're not pretending to get her anymore. You're pretending to remind yourself that you never needed her in the first place. And one day, that becomes the truth. Most men crumble because they're too honest too early. They reveal everything before she's earned it, their dreams, their pain, their heart. And that kind of honesty, without boundaries, becomes a weapon used against them. So instead, you learn the art of the slow reveal. You pretend like you're not ready to open up. You pretend like your world is full. You give her glimpses, but never the whole picture. And in that restraint, you gain her respect. Because women don't trust men who spill everything. They trust men who control what they share, and when... So here's the real secret. Pretending isn't about women at all. It's about you. It's about training your mind to lead, not follow, to hold, not beg, to command attention without seeking approval. Women just happen to respond to it because most men are too reactive, too emotional, too desperate. But when you pretend, you create the emotional distance needed to regain your power, and eventually, that gap becomes real. You start focusing on your mission. You start building your empire. You start becoming the man you were meant to be. And the best part? She'll chase you. Not because you tricked her, but because you transformed. When you pretend you don't need her, you're not insulting her. You're liberating yourself. You're stepping away from the emotional leash that most men put around their own necks. See, a woman will subconsciously test to see if you'll abandon yourself for her. She doesn't even realize she's doing it. It's instinct. But the man who doesn't react, who pretends to be unmoved, who keeps his pace and doesn't flinch when she pulls back, that man passes every test without even knowing it, because he's too focused on his path to notice games. And in that steadiness, she sees something rare, someone worth following. Pretending, when rooted in purpose, becomes a tool for focus. You start prioritizing your life, your time, your direction. Not because you don't care about women, but because you finally realize that attention is currency, and where you spend it determines your entire value in a woman's eyes. So while other men are flooding her inbox, validating her ego, trying to prove their worth, you pretend like you're not even in the same stadium. You're building your vision, you're refining your habits, and that contrast, it drives her wild. Because now, you're not just a man, you're a mission. And when she finally starts chasing you, because she will, you don't drop the act, you maintain the frame, you let her lean in, you observe her effort, you don't reward her too quickly, you pretend like you're still undecided, not to hurt her, not to manipulate her, but to see if she's willing to earn what you've built. That's what pretending is. It's holding the frame long enough to reveal who's genuine and who's just looking for another dopamine fix. And when you hold it long enough, you'll find the truth. Every time. Pretending gives you space from your emotions. It puts a delay between stimulus and response, and in that delay, you grow stronger. You stop living on autopilot. You stop reacting to every mood swing. You stop giving women control of your inner world. Instead, you begin to lead yourself. And the man who can lead himself is the only man capable of leading others. That's why pretending is powerful. It's the dress rehearsal for emotional mastery. It's how you train your nervous system to stop flinching and start responding with calculated calm. Pretending teaches you one thing most men never learn: how to walk away in silence. Not with drama, not with a scene, just gone. Present one moment, absent the next. And that absence, it echoes, it haunts, it lingers. Women don't forget the man who disappears with dignity. They forget the one who begged, the one who ranted, the one who tried to make her understand. But the man who vanished without a word, with his head held high, that man stays in her memory far longer than any emotionally explosive exit. Here's the twist. When you pretend like you're already complete, your subconscious begins to believe it. Your habits shift, your focus sharpens, your confidence grows, and what started as pretending slowly becomes real. You walk differently, you speak differently, you move differently. Because you're no longer playing from behind. You're not trying to win her, she's trying to earn you. That shift is subtle but powerful, and every time you catch yourself slipping, you return to the act. You play the role until the role becomes you. There's a certain energy that only comes from a man who's immune to the feminine spell. Not jaded, not bitter, just aware. And he pretends like the game doesn't affect him because it doesn't anymore. He's seen too much, he's lost enough, he's suffered and come out the other side. And now, he plays by a different code. He's no longer surprised by flakes, tests, or emotional chaos. He simply navigates it like a man who's seen the playbook. And that energy, composed, alert, untouchable, is more seductive than any sweet words or six-pack abs. Pretending gives you time. And in that time, you build, you evolve, you heal, you reframe every scar as a lesson. And every time you want to break down and chase, you pretend like you're too focused to care. You pretend like her pull doesn't even register. Because the truth is, once you master that art, she's not your distraction anymore. She's your mirror. She shows you where your self-worth is still shaky, where your emotional leash is still attached. And when you see that, you thank her silently and pull the leash off yourself. The man who pretends with intention becomes a master of energy. He knows when to give it and when to withdraw it. He knows when to speak and when silence is louder. He knows that what you don't say often echoes louder than 1,000 confessions. And women, they feel this. They lean in. They chase the energy they can't quite define. And that's the genius behind pretending. You create that energy before you've even earned it. You wear the skin of the man you're becoming until it fits like armor. So here's what you do. Tomorrow morning, wake up and pretend like you've already won. Pretend like you're already the man she dreams about. Pretend like you've got the discipline to walk away from anything that disrespects your peace. Pretend like you're too busy chasing your purpose to chase her. Pretend like the real prize isn't her attention, it's your own self-respect. And the longer you pretend, the more it becomes real. Because the greatest transformation doesn't come from waiting to feel ready. It comes from acting like the man you know you can become until you are him.